Hello, my name is Jamie, and today I'm making a how-to video for how to smooth 3D printed parts with a wood filler. It shouldn't matter if the part is made with ABS or PLA. In today's example, I'm going to be using PLA printed parts. As this says, this isn't the only way to smooth 3D printed parts, but it works well if the part is going to be painted. The supplies you're going to need is you're going to need a cup of water, an FDM 3D printer, filament, sandpaper, wood filler, throwaway paintbrush. Personal protective equipment. You're going to want gloves when dealing with a wood filler, and potentially you're going to want safety glasses. And when it comes to sanding this stuff, you may potentially want a mask, a breathalyzer, a respirator. There we go. What am I talking about? You're going to want a respirator. All right. And here's some examples. So in this case, I'm using Minwax Carpenter's wood filler. There's also an Elmer's one, which should work just fine. I'm using 220 very fine grit. Um, the wood filler, when it's applied, is fairly, there's not much hardness to it, so it's fairly soft. So this is the only sandpaper I've been using. And then the nitro gloves. The main reason for the nitro gloves is after personally using it, the wood filler does bother me. So we use gloves. All right. Some wood filler notes. Here's the let me go back here. Let's open this guy up. Here's the manufacturer's recommended notes, how to use it, preparation warnings, some overview, application steps, which we're going to read through, and that's just copied directly. So we're going to squeeze a liberal amount of the wood filler into an area filled and press firmly into place. Using a putty knife, fill slightly above surface to allow for sanding while minimizing overspreading on surrounding areas. Remove excess. Allow the filler to dry completely. Dry time will vary depending upon depth of the area to be filled. Most common shallow repairs will dry within 2 hours. For deeper holes, fill in 1/4 inch at a time. Okay, 1/4 inch. May require 2 to 6 hours to dry. Okay, so that's if you're doing straight up gap filling. Sand filler smooth and flush to the wood. Remove all sanding residue before staining, top coating, or painting. Cautions, and this is why this is in this text directly. Avoid contact with eyes and skin. Wash hands after using. Very much do so. Keep container closed when not in use. Do not transfer contents to other containers. I'm guessing they don't want it in different types of plastics. Might get weird. Might try to eat it. First aid in case of eye contact, flush thoroughly and with large amounts of water. Get medical attention if irritation persists. If swallowed, call poison control center, hospital emergency room, or physician immediately. Warning, this product contains chemicals known to the state of California to cause cancer. Do not take internally and keep out of reach of children. And then here's a link to the safety data sheet for the material so you can get a heads up on what you're using and how to use it. That kind of stuff. Okay, moving on. So the gist is we have a model. In this case, I have a smaller example of this bunker that we're going to be doing that I'm going to be working on so that basically the video is shorter, bigger part, more to do. This is a gist of what it could look like if you apply the wood filler and sand. So basically, you filled in areas. Particular, the wood filler is good for filling in gaps, as we can see here. An alternative to this, if you don't like the wood filler at all, you could just straight up try sanding the model. In this example, that's exactly what I did. I sanded it first, and then I applied the wood filler afterwards. In practice, now that I've done this quite a few times, I apply the wood filler first and then sand. So these are different after effects you can get depending upon how much sanding you do. So this is with no sanding. This is with minimal, moderate sanding. And this is with a very light amount of wood filler put on the model. Here's some effects of what the models can look like painted. So this is at a priming stage. You can kind of see that you're seeing the brush strokes, but you're not seeing the layer lines. Here it is with paint actually started to get applied. And here you can still see the wood filler kind of in the background, but the layer lines are obscured with the thickness of the acrylic paint. And then here's the finished model. Yeah, that's pretty decent for what you got. And okay, now this gives you an example of scaling up. So this is a rather large model, and the effects is applied here. Okay, so some general pros to this technique is it doesn't require exotic materials. So the wood filler I just picked up at Lowe's for, I don't know, 12 or so bucks, and that's a lot. Can modify the finish depending upon the results you're looking for. So you can go for smooth or with like a stucco effect. Works well for models with flat surfaces. This is true. Um, Cons is it takes time to do. So to apply and to sand is time consuming. Wood filler is very abrasive and you'll want to avoid skin tack by using gloves. That's my recommendation. Highly detailed models will pose a challenge. And there's different tools you potentially use, like a Dremel or a rotary tool. For now, what I've been mainly doing is sanding by hand. Okay, so that'll be the intro. Now we'll move on to the actual video portion where we'll talk about actually demoing this. We'll move on to the demo portion. Okay. If you can see it, this is the example part we're going to be fixing today. Comes with two pieces. I'm just going to do the exterior of this. I'm not going to touch the interior at all. It makes sense for the larger ones. I'm just going to do the interior. This is an example one that I've done before. To give you some idea. This has magnets attached to it. So basically trying to replicate this effect. To give you a sense of scale, this is the full tower that I've also done the wood filler and the sanding with. And this takes a long time to do. That's why we're doing a small one today. And when painted, this gives you some sense of the final finish we're going for to remove the layer lines, effectively. And this doesn't have the interior done at all for the paint job, so in some sense, it's all that good. All right, so we'll get set up. We have the wood filler. We got some gloves. Grab one of these guys out of here. I tend to just use one. I might have dominant hand. A paintbrush. There's also a cup of water. Just gonna keep that in view. That's mostly for thinning, because this applies like a texture paint effectively. And so in particular, these areas right here to get it on. For the most part, when I apply this, I basically finger paint. What I'm doing is I'm trying to press it into the recesses. The paintbrush works, but tends to want to sit on top of the material and not fill in because it is a relatively thick paint. So I'm gonna get my glove on, and then we'll start working on this guy. I tend to focus just on the sides that have the layer lines, and I tend to ignore the tops because, for the most part, those come out smooth enough for what I'm looking for. Okie dokie. So we'll pop this guy open. It looks a little bit weird because effectively this material started to dry out on me, so I added some water in order to keep it from drying out. And we'll just kind of start. And start filling it in. And at this point, I'll most likely speed the video up. So I'm not having to drag through this process. And you can apply it as thick or as thin as you want. So, and this is a key bit right here. I started with this side intentionally. This is showing why I'm using the glove to do this because I want to make sure that these gaps are filled in. And if I just use, you can't see it, that is washed out. Let me change my lighting a bit. Let's see if that helps. Not quite. We'll mess with it. Yeah, so can you see for crack? Let me see if I can get that better. That's kind of washed out. That might be better. Oh, that's probably the best of the bunch. What I need is natural light. Okay. Okay. So we'll just kind of go through the line. Let me fix this real quick for me so I can see what I'm doing. And there it is. Okay, okay. So I'm going to do the easy to reach areas first. And I'll kind of come back through and do the details. And paper towels doesn't hurt either. But push comes to shove. Let's bring that little brush involved. Just try to thin it. I put it on too thick. And this is just a throwaway brush because the bristles are so messed up on this thing. So don't use a brush you care about. And we're just going to come back here and see on this anyway, so it's not a huge concern. And see this, you could probably just get away with using the paintbrush as long as you're particular. this guy. Okay, last side. And again, you could probably get away with just using a paintbrush. In particular, I'm trying to get a sense of the texture when I put it on here. And you can definitely feel that through the gloves. But a paintbrush would probably work just. And by the time you prime this and do the other stuff, by that stage, a lot of it should be taken care of. And it's not going to get picked up on my mic, but you can actually hear when well, I can actually hear while I'm doing this, my fingers scraping across the layer lines, right? There's an audio cue when I'm doing this. This off. And this is effectively a thick paint, kind of how it goes on. And none of these brush strokes or any of this stuff's going to matter by the time you sand it down. That's all just going to disappear away. Really, I'm going to paint some of the inside. Who knew? Huh. Yeah. I'm going to start to dry on this other side. And all I'm trying to do now is just make sure that it's fairly even. All right, we'll give that a moment. Let's see. Think. And don't be too afraid to go relatively heavy because it's just going to all get sanded anyways. And I need a better paper towel, but that'll. Tis the fate of demos. Sure. So, and you can see here, so this looks relatively thick, right? By the time you get to sanding it, you'll come up with a much lighter finish. Right. All right, we'll do the last piece, the roof. This goes on fairly quick. I don't tend to do a lot of processing on the roofs. And if you're actually kind of careful enough with it, you can kind of get what you're looking for the gap fills by just scraping it along there. Yeah, let's do that too. Okay, let's fix this guy up a little bit. So for these corners, we just want to make sure there's material in those. Sure. Okay, this guy, we're just gonna go on here. I'm gonna put a little bit on this, but I'm not gonna get too hung up on it. And more or less make sure that I'm not filling in details. Okay, that's enough excitement. Doing the interior a little bit, but I'm not real worried about it. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry. We'll come back and sand it down. Yeah. All right. So about half an hour later, this guy's mostly dried. You can see obviously there's some parts where there's texture. Now this should be good enough to start sanding. I did end up doing a double coat. You can see there's a little bit of discoloration here because that's not quite dry. It's not all the way dry yet, but it's most enough. I'll sand the other sides first. I did put an extra coat here and I took it because I know this is a problem spot for the gaps. And you can see it on this model. So in particular, because I know this spot is a problem spot, this area got a double coat. All right, so I'm gonna grab some sandpaper and we'll get this guy smoothed out. All right. So I already got some. This guy's well used, but it's also flexible to get into areas of detail. So we'll just start out. And this is why you want, especially if you're going to be doing this for hours on end, why you want a respirator mat, because you can just see the guts coming off of it, which I believe is mostly just sawdust. But if you're going to be doing it for long durations, you don't want to deal with it breathing in that crap. There's nothing on this. This is dry at this point. The whole point is to get the excess material away so you can kind of see what you're doing. And that's it. So that's pretty much one side that's been smooth. All right, continue on. Because it is the wood filler is such a soft material combined with the plastic, like there's not a lot of for a part this size, there's not a lot of effort involved. Where it gets involved is when you got to do the inside and outside of that 4-story tower variant. It was here. And all I'm doing is running my finger along to see if I can still feel the texture. And depending upon what you're going for, you may not sand this at all if you're going for like a stucco look or something like that. You may only smooth the you may only sand the details you want to smooth and leave the other details alone if you're particularly looking for like a cement or a stucco texture. Okay. And this is about as fast as I do it outside of like this video production. Like just actually working models. This is about as much effort as I put into this is the finished effect, more or less. Okay. Cleared side. And there's not a lot of force being pressed upon here either. So as far as like sanding delicate details, you don't apply a lot of force. Um, and what I mean by that Hold on a second. What I mean by not applying a lot of force, so like with these window details right here, um, pop one of these out. So there wasn't, it's literally just like that. You're not pushing down hard on these things to do it. And the sandpaper is enough. Doing like that is enough to start smoothing the sides. So you're not pushing a lot of force on the delicate details. Get that out of the way. Okay, back to the actual project. Apologies, but while I'm thinking about it, I'm in the process of this thing. The main point is I don't want you to feel intimidated that you're gonna break your print doing this stuff. Okay, last side. And anything with a lot of detail is gonna end up putting extra care into. More. And the nice thing with this is based on the color, you can see what section you've sanded versus what section you haven't. Especially on the white PLA, on the white plastics, it's very easy to tell. On the darker plastic, like black, it's very hard. It's harder to tell, for sure. All right, a little bit more, but it's close. The other technique I've seen mentioned listed on the YouTubes is they'll do this, but they'll dip the sandpaper in water. It's called a wet sanding technique. I work just fine. I haven't tried it. Straight up. Um, and what I'm doing is a visual check to see where the paint's thicker than in other places. Because based on the color, like this guy, based on the color, you can see like here, there's that little line going through. The paint's a little bit thicker there than it is, at the top and stuff like that. So you can kind of see the evenness sanding is happening. So this is effectively done. I'm just going to go in through and picking up areas that aren't as sanded as others. And so the setup time for, because these are such thin coats, the setup time isn't much at all. Yeah, like I said, about half an hour, but it wouldn't even be that bad. The reason why it took half an hour is because I watered the paint down. So I had to work the moisture out of it. All right, brush this off. Okay, good enough for today's conversation. And we can compare. So this is one that was done, days ago. It's been set up for a long time. This one, interestingly enough, this one you can see the gap fill more easily than you can on the one we just did, which is fascinating. But yeah, no, it's cool. And we'll take the roof a little bit. This doesn't take much effort at all. You can't really see much of this on screen because it's a full part. And it's not even, my problem is it's not fully dry on the bottom. Yeah, I didn't notice that. Because it wasn't open air, I had sitting down like this bottom part didn't fully dry. So that'll be a to be continued moment. Well, let's skip doing the bottom. All right, I'm gonna take a shortcut here. I'm not gonna go much further with this one. But that gives you the gist. And I haven't mucked about with the timestamps too much. So where you've seen me actually processing the part, I didn't speed that up at all. Yeah, and you just kind of go from there. Get it to the desired finish you want, and that's it. So this is effectively ready for. The interesting note is because this is effectively sawdust, right? Wood fill. I'm not even sure you need to prime it as much as you would like a regular plastic part or a resin part or a metal part or any of that. I think paint will stick to it just fine. So optionally, you can prime it, but like I know when my wife did this one, she didn't prime it at all. So she just applied paint directly to the model because she was looking for this lighter tone as a base. And because this is practically a paint anyways, one, this isn't it's not going to come off, so I'm scraping my finger along here. We've already sanded the hell out of this thing. So what's left here is pretty damn resilient. It's not going to come off, right? You can drop it. Like it's not going to crack. It's not going to come off. It's not going to wear from moisture, right? Uh, this is pretty well adhered to the plastic. But you can still prime it with like a black or a different color primer, but I'm not sure you need it for that matter. All right. So yeah, next steps would be painting, going on your way, and have fun gaming. Okay. Thanks for watching.